Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another one, back with another one, back with another one. Ah, last night, it was a decent stream. It got hit with the copyright claim by Ho-ass UMG, by the way, Ho-ass UMG. And it was a certain uh so-called loyalty-free music. It was by this guy named Aqua, Good Morning something. They hit me with that shit. Well, it's not free. Um, not gonna play that shit again. I'm not gonna play music in the background no more, especially from restreams, because you can play it in the background, but the only downside is some of it has some copyright beats into it. So you got to be careful next time, y'all, because this is something that I was experimenting with, but never again, never again. I tried that, just trying to do something different, try to be cool with it. Never again, never again, never again, because I think what I'm seeing now is like there's not much options. I saw this, and I'm gonna talk about this Friday too. Talk about there ain't no options on the internet. I'm gonna probably rename the title. I had a perfect title for it, but it goes around what I'm gonna talk about this coming up Friday. So I'll be doing a vlog stream about it, and I'm gonna talk about the options besides alternatives of YouTube. But we will get into the main topic, Hannibal, and also the history of writing. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that in a minute. I just want to make a brief what happened to that stream from last night. And the reason being is because the copyright claim. I got hit with a copyright claim with that. It wasn't a strike, it was a claim. So basically I'm just seeing it for what it is. And then it's normally you see this a lot. And that's what people's on that type of time. And then YouTube's on that type of time as well. So pretty much, but I'm doing everything. I know the game is about to come on in a couple more minutes. I'm just waiting on it. So pretty much, I'm going to talk about the history of writing Hannibal. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. So just give me a couple more minutes because I got to explain why that last of the independent thinking series. I'm not going to do it next week, but I'll bring it back in the fall. I'll promise you. We'll do a repeat of 16 with a different topic. And then we're going to do 17. We're going to talk about something else that's prior what's going on in the elections. We're going to talk about that as well. So that's just a heads up. But Friday, I will speak on is there options, alternative besides YouTube or alternatives? What's going on, T Church, TC Killer? What's going on, man? But yeah, let's get into it. The history of writing. In case y'all don't know, I talk about Dark History series normally. I don't usually do this like every Wednesday. I stick to politics mainly, but when I decide to do something different, just one of these Wednesdays, I'll do this every other Wednesday, not every Wednesday. But the history of writing, I think I spoke on this before on Varys, and this is going to be in the Dark History library, I believe. So I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to see what playlist I got it on because I got to make sure everything's set. What is right? Political world systems. Hold on. Not only political world systems. I'll put this in the dark history as well. Yeah, two playlists. But yeah, let's get it. Let's get to it. So we're gonna talk about the history of writing, and I also got the confirmed from Babylon Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor, the history of ancient black races, including by the Black Hebrews, designed by El Hajjan. That's his spin of it, but talks about Hannibal. That's another source I got. So we're gonna talk about Hannibal later. Let's get into the history of writing. Okay, I'll make sure y'all see the screen. Let me dump out for a minute. I'm gonna be, yeah, I'm gonna make the screen bigger. I'm gonna dump out for a minute. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if y'all can see that. And I'll put the link where I'm reading. I'm gonna read it to y'all. I can see the pictures, whatever. I'm gonna read it to y'all. It says, note which has so far been found is not the same as first finding anything. It's simply the first or the oldest of what is which has been found so far. So far, the oldest example of early writing is with Black Europeans, who are likely like the descendants of the Cohashian, like the Grimaldi man who first entered Europe at the Gibraltar circa of 45,000 BCE. This is not surprising. Their genius is apparent when considered in the context of extraordinary artwork that these people produced from very early times. The Grimaldi grave, old woman and child, Monaco, 43,000 BCE. Modern men. That's what they try to compare it to based off the Grimaldi man, the Bushman. Okay, here we go. Okay, we got the Grimaldi cave painting of Lassagutz, France, 15,000 BCE. Others to 35,000 BCE. That's the painting. And here's the sculptures that they did with clay. Shouts out to this brother right here. Shouts out to the real history, www.com. Appreciate you letting me do this, sharing your content on my channel. That's what this is based off on, combination of that. Shouts out to this brother. Um, Go find his page, look this stuff up. There's others out there too. I'm gonna try to find, but shout this brother out. I appreciate you for the hard work and the research. I salute this, no matter what it is, because they don't teach this stuff anywhere. Forensics mock-up of European first modern humans from the cave with bones, located in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, 36,000 to 34,000 BCE. But it costs a stinky man, Ukrainian Russia, 35,000 BCE, bust created by Professor M.M. Grishamov, 35,000, something like that BC. And Sangir man, Vladimir, Russia, 26,000 BCE. This is the old legend. And then you got 3 city tablets from Transylvania. The also, yeah, Transylvania on the river of the Moros in Romania, 5,000 BCE. The Vinica culture. The Vinica culture. Let's talk about the Vinica culture. The Vinica culture was an early culture between the and the third millennium BCE, stretching around the course of the Danube in what is today's Serbia. Countries like Serbia, what's in Yugoslavia, like today is Serbia, Hungary, Croatia, Bosnia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yeah, they're two countries in one. Both Bosnia and Herzegovina, something like that. Ugh, it's a mouthful. You know, Govovina, I won't say Govovina, and Romania and Bulgaria and the Republic of Macedonia. These are the cultures what you call the Vinica culture. That's what they come out of those countries I just mentioned. Although the traces of it can be found all around the Balkans. Yeah, Eastern countries in the Balkans, as well as parts of the Central Europe and Asia and Minor Anatolia, once known as Anatolia, Asia Minor. In order of the Starkeesfield settlement located in the deepest layer of Vinica sites, mud huts with the tent roofs were discovered, which the settlers of the Starkevo culture lived and were also buried during the period of viniculture. Houses were erected above ground with a complex of agricultural layouts and several rooms built of wood that were covered in mud. The houses in settlement are facing northeast, and southwest with the streets between them. Other settlements include Divsistian, uh, Pataparini, Selvak, or Povnik, or Perodoninik, or Libivik, or Uvar. Recent evacuations at the site of Povnik settlement have shed considerably light on the Vinovic culture. The Povnik settlement of flourishments from 5,500 BCE until it was destroyed by a fire in 4700 BCE, but the findings suggest as an advanced division of labor and central organization. Vinica houses had stoves and special holes, and specifically for rubbish, and the dead were buried in cemeteries. People slept on wood and fur mats and made clothes of wool, flax, and leather. But figurines found not only represents the deities, but many show the deity. The daily life of the inhabitants, and women are depicted in short tops and skirts, wearing jewelry. A thermal well found near uh, the thermal well found near the settlement, it might have been the evidence of the Europe oldest apes. Yeah, the oldest apes, they would say. Yeah, they said the oldest apes. Here we go. The oldest spa is my fault. Excuse me. I want to say Europe's oldest spa, not apes. I don't know what I was saying. Spa. Excuse me for that. Apologize for y'all. The preliminary dating of the Pulvinic metal workshop with the furnace and copper tools dated to 5,500 BCE. If correct, that indicates that the Copper Age could have started in Europe 500 years or more earlier than the previous thought. But the sophisticated furnace and a smelter and feature eastern pipe-like air vents with hundreds of tiny holes in them and chimney and to ensure air goes into the furnace to feed the fire and the smoke comes out away from the workers. The copper workshops found elsewhere from later periods once thought to indicate that the beginnings of the Copper Age were less advanced and didn't have chimneys and workers there. Had to blow air on the fire with bellows. But the Venica people left little signia of their language, which may be isolated from any languages existing today. Their writings, the Venica symbols, might be pictograms. So the Lady Venica down here, as we got right here, the Taro tablets. This is the tablets of their writings in their language. It could be like a font or lettering and symbols. This is their language, like the history of writing. And we're gonna get in the tail end part. I'm just gonna see what's going on in here. So it's pretty much salute, salute. Appreciate it, Tampa. But it's just pretty much it. You get into it, and that's just what it is. So these are like symbols that you see the Tartaria tablets and then the Lady Venica right here. So, we're talking about the Venica culture right here. So the Venica symbols or signs, also known as the Venica alphabet. See, these are alphabets we're probably seeing in those tablets. Venica torta script or old European script are a set of symbols are found on the prehistoric artifacts from southeastern Europe. A few scholars believe that they constituted a writing system of the Venica culture. In 1875, archaeological evacuations led by the archaeologist Sofifa Torma in 1840, 1899 at Tordos, today Tordos, Romania, unearthed a cache of objects inscribed with previously unknown symbols. In 1908, a similar cache was found during the evacuations conducted by Mojo Vasic, 1869, 1956. In Vinica, in the suburbs of Belgrade, Serbia, some of 120 kilometers from Tordos, later more such as fragments were found in the Benjica, another part of Belgrade. Since then, over the 150 50 Vinica sites have been identified in Serbia alone, but many include Vinica itself has not been fully evacuated. Thus, the culture of the whole area is called Vinica culture. And the script is often called the Vinica Tortos script. Yeah. So you got the script. Okay. The discovery of the Tortaria tablets in Romania by Nicholas Vlasia in 1961 reignited the debate. Vlasia believed that the inscriptions to be the pictograms and the finds were subsequently carbon dated to be before 4000 BCE, 1300 years earlier than the dates he expected, and earlier even in the writing symbols of the Sumerians and the Minoans to date. More than the 1,000 fragments with similar inscriptions have been found on various archaeological sites throughout the southeastern Europe and notably in Greece. Dispelia tablet, Bulgaria, former I mentioned Yugoslavia. It was all part of Yugoslavia, Romania, Eastern Hungary, Moldova, and southern Ukraine. They in war right now with Russia right now. See, all in that region. Chinese scholars have suggested that such signs were produced by a convergent development of what might be called a precursor to the writing, which evolved independently in a number of societies. Indeed, there are some similarities between Sumerian cuneiform script and stone markings from the Kalajuk in Turkey and Kamyan Moyan in southern Ukraine, both predating the Vinica culture by several millennia. But these people are likely haplogroup 1, the Celts or the Gauls, who some people call them Celts, but I'm going to say Celts. Even though I know a lot of people call them Celts, Celts, it don't really matter. I say Celts or Gauls, who may also have formed the Continent Tripolian culture. They were conquered and organized by the horse riding Indo-European white nomadic tribes from Asia. Oh, I talked about that in my pre-records, my old pre-records. Y'all can check that out. I've pretty much covered that, so it's no need. Dispilio tablet right here. That's what they talk about. Dispilio tablet is a wooden tablet bearing the inscribed symbols dating between 720 7,000, I mean 72, I'll say 7,260 BCE, 5,250 BCE. So 7260 BCE, 5250 BCE. That's what I meant by that. The tablet was discovered in Dispilio Lake settlement in northern Greece. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get type thing. And it's just like these tablets are so old. And, I didn't mean to I should have touched on this last year, the history of writing. I think I talked about this and I want to revisit this again. It's pretty much everything. You talk about the history of languages and things like that. That's what I'm talking about. So back then, it's pretty much basic. And they had tablets. You didn't have books. You had tablets, stone tablets. And I was talking about this years ago out in Embry and debating somebody about tablets and talking about the Sumerian tablets as well. So it's pretty much what you see right now. The true writing in which the entire context of the linguistic utterance is encoded so that the another reader can reconstruct with a fair degree of accuracy the exact utterance and written down is a later development and distinguished from proto writing in that the latter typically avoids encoding grammatical words fixes making it difficult or impossible to confidently reconstruct the exact meaning but indeed by the writer unless a great deal of context is already known in advance. It is generally agreed that the true writing was invented independently between 2 and 5 times in the ancient world. It is universally agreed that the writing was developed independently in at least 2 places: Mesopotamia, specifically ancient Sumerian, ancient Sumer, or which we call Sumerians, and Mesoamerica. It is a debate whether writing was developed completely independently in Egypt and China, or whether the appearance of writing in either or both places was due to the cultural diffusion, i.e., concepts of representing the language using writing. If not specified specifics, if not the specifics of how such a system worked was brought by the trades from an already literate civilization. Similarly, the debate surrogate to the script of the Bronze Age. Indus Valley, I talked about Indus Valleys in the Dark History streams. You can see that. I talk about them a little bit. Civilization Ancient India, with the additions of provisos that the script is still undeciphered and that there is a debate over whether the script is a true writing at all or some kind of proto writing or non linguistic sign system. And in addition, the possibility is the undeciphered Rungo script or Eastern Island again. However, it is debated whether this system is truly writing at all, and if it is, whether it's yet another case of a cultural diffusion of writing. Talk about true writing. We're talking about right here. So it's pretty much. Let's speak on the Sumerians. Talked about them a lot on various pre-records. Let me see right quick. I'm gonna go into my library pre-records pretty much. So what we got here, I'm just gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna drop down for a minute. So it's pretty much here, pretty much there. So that's just what I see. Let's see. Yeah, it's on. Oh, let's see. It ain't even 8:30. Damn, they late. Yeah, let me drop this down. Let me drop this down. Mm, explain some history lessons with y'all in a minute, because I think people need to know what's about to happen, what's going on, real quick. So it's pretty much it. Yeah, I got y'all some segments tomorrow, but do something totally different with y'all. Okay, 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 okay. Let me get into it real quick because I did a lot of uploads. There's certain things there's a lot of things I did. Okay, it's old stuff. Okay. Hannibal. I talked about in part one. Punic Wars, part one, part two. Y'all can check that out. Pre-record. It's all pre-record. This is before I even had the gear and stuff. Okay, Afro-Asian culture. I talked about them in part one. Um, it's 14 to 2. Yeah. Oh shit. I was talking about other sets. My fault. Okay, I have 1,000 views on it. This dates back February the 2nd, 2014. So that would be 8 years ago. 8 years ago. I talked about this 8 years ago about the Sumerians. If y'all want to see that pre-recording, you can check that out. And part two, I said from Babylon to about 2 chapter. I used this very book I'm about to read to y'all with the Hannibal shit, and I actually talked about that, and I used the pictures and things like that. And Afro-Asian culture goes to Europe too, and that's part two. And it's the rest of the chapter from the Babylonian too, and then the Cometians, Egyptians, and this part two series talks about Afro-Asia and then Sumerians, of course. And then I actually did a piece on them in the Dark History series as well. Let me see my playlist. Let me see my playlist right here, because that's what you're gonna see in so many words. So I'm not pretty much disappointed or anything. You're just gonna see a lot. Okay. Oh shit. Fucking. Oh damn. Let me wait because I'm my knees burning. Ah, my knees burning. Fuck. Oh fuck. Hate this shit. Oh, it's always something. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, let me find it, y'all. Sheesh. Did I talk about them? Did I talk about them pre-central? Yeah, I talked about it. Yeah. Okay, okay, okay. History of Black Europe and those Valley Dark culture. Um, I think I talked about it in World History of Black Civilization. Talk about Egypt and them. I think I talk about them a little bit. That's Persians and things like that. But Sumerians, I think I talk about them. And one of them, I think it's that one I believe I talk about the Canaan. It could be one of those in Canaan and things like that. But yeah, but check that out. Check that out. That's pretty much what I see now. But oh damn it, I got so much on my mind. All right, but back to the content. I'm gonna be I'm just kind of pissed right now because my shit's acting slow right now. Oh man, it's a hassle. Yeah, I'm gonna have to restart this shit. This is crazy, and I ain't got time for this. Yeah, I'm just gonna restart it. Ain't got time for that. All right. Conform script is one of the earliest known from the writing expressions emerging in Sumer around the 3000 BCE, with the predecessors reaching into the fourth millennium. But the Urk, the fourth period. Is that right? Yeah, the Urk, the fourth period conformium writing began as a system of the pictographs. In the three millennia in the script expanded, the pictorial representation became simplified, more abstract, as the number of characteristics in use also grew, gradually smaller from about 1,000 unique characters in the early Bronze Age to about 400 unique characters in the late Bronze Age. The original Sumerian script was adapted for the writing of the Akkadian, Egyptian, Ab- Elamite, Hittite, Luvian, Hattic, and Hurrian and Eurytanian languages. It has inspired the Ugaritic and Old Persian alphabets. Conform writing was gradually replaced by the Phoenician alphabet during the Neo-Assyrian Empire by the second century CE, but the script had become extinct. And the conformium documents were wet clay tablets by means blunt and shit. Let me hold on for a minute. I don't mean to misword it. Blunt read for a stylus, and impressions left by the stylus were wedged and shaped, giving the rise of the same conformiums, wedge and shape from the Latin cunius, meaning wedge. Okay, if you check the Persian series, I talked about them a little bit. It's pretty much the same that you see all around. So yeah, damn, fucking phone was acting up. I'm gonna step away for a minute, y'all. Yeah, this shit's getting my fucking nerves sometimes. You try to do shit and this shit wants to act up on a goddamn live stream. Yeah, I'm sick of this shit. I really am. I'm gonna have to get a better gear in the future. I'm sick of this shit. Every time on a live stream, this shit always want to act up. You try to do too much, but it happens. I fucking hate doing shit like this every time. Damn it. I'm so sick of this shit. That's why I hate fucking internets. I'll speak on that Friday. I'm gonna stay on subject. This is pissing me off way more. All right, I talked about them in the Dark History series. I think it was the Persian ones, and I believe the World Black History. I think it was one of them too. And this is an interesting people. I talked about them in Afro Asian history years ago, 8 years ago, and talked about the same thing. They had those tablets, the Gilgamesh periods, the Chaldean period. These people right here, languish right here, the statue, and then of course the Kish tablet inscribed in Proto Conformium Picture CE. So we got it right here. I'm gonna step away real quick. I'll be right back. All right, back at it again. Back at it again. Make sure my wiring off. Okay. Okay. So with them, the Sumerians, I believe this is pretty good. And then we got the pictographs on the bottom. See this right here, and you see the symbolisms and things like that. I talk about this in the Babylon Timbuktu and the Sumerians and things like that. So you got them right here in the symbolism. I might have to open up the chapter. And the blah monuments of Sumer later prehistoric period around 3100 BCE, stone tablets that may record the sale of the land of the two stone tablets seen to form a pair through it's not fully understand, but what else were used for what these what for what they mean. Excuse me, what they mean. However, is widely accepted that they are recorded a transaction in which land it was exchanged for various goods, with the carved figures and representing the individuals involved, but they thus represent an early from Mesopotamian Kandadura or boundary stone that the pictographs on the long period tablet appear to the record size of the field, while the half moon shaped tablet lists what seems to be the purchase, the price, and or additional payments. Sumer early writing tablets recording the allocation of beer 3100 BCE to 3000 BCE. This is a clay that has an early example of writing in the form of pictographs and drawn in clay with a sharp instrument. In this case, they recorded the allocation of beer, but the symbol for beer, an upright jar with a pointed base appears to three times on the tablet. But the beer was the most popular drink in Mesopotamia. It was issued as rations to workers. Alongside the pictographs are five different shaped impressions representing the numerical system. The numerical system numerical symbols, my fault. Numerical symbols over times, these signs became more abstract, wedge like, or conforming. The earliest tablets with the writing inscriptions represents the works of the administrators and perhaps of the large temple writing the recording of the spoken language. It emerged from earlier recordings and systems at the end of the fourth millennium. But the first written language in Mesopotamia is called Sumerian. Most of the early tablets come from the site of Urk, in the southern Mesopotamia. Yeah, the southern Mesopotamia. It may have been here that is the form of writing was invented, and the signs are grouped into boxes at the early date are usually read from top to bottom and right to left. One sign in the bottom on the row on the left shows the bowl tipped towards a schematic human head. This is the sign for to eat. Yeah. See all those symbols they show you where the beer and the drink and all this other stuff, human heads and all that stuff. This is what they did. So let me find the chapters in Babylon Timbuktu, and they show it. This is pretty much, what you see, what you get. So I'm pretty much getting the chapters in it. So pretty much. Okay, Sumer and Kish. Okay, we're gonna get to this part right here. Sumer and Kish. Afro-Asian cultures goes to Europe. I talk about that as well, and I'll tell you, and they was talking about the origins of this. So it's kind of like we was talking about Ramesses and things like that. So ancient black civilizations. I'm gonna read this part right here. More than 6,000 years ago, in the land called Mesopotamia, there developed the most remarkable civilization then known to mankind. This civilization was centered between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. These rivers begin in the mountains of Armenian, Armenia, and the flow in the south of the eastern directions towards the Persian Gulf. The soil of this area is tremendously fertile because of the alluvial deposits brought down by the two rivers. European civilization developed from ancient black civilization. Without this black civilization, white domination and influence as we know it today would have been improbable. A number of different tribes were entrenched in the southern part of the Tigris Euphrates region. The southern section was known at different times by many names, among which are Sumer, Arcadia, Arcade, Akkad, and Chaldea. But the name best known to us is Babylonia. We just talked about this right here, which y'all see on the screen in the tablet. So this is further proof what I'm getting this source right here from this booklet right here. So this is absolutely a good source to read. It's plenty of other sources out there better, but this one's a better source. It breaks down this what I'm talking about. So it goes hand in hand with this. So this area was also located in the Garden of Eden, they would say, and the people of this region were jet black. They would say, yeah, dark skin. You know, it don't really matter at this point. They were historically, and then everybody else came later. That's modern civilization, but this is like pre. This is like mid-age pre-man. Pre-man was before them, but then there's we call it mid pre-age modern civilization. This is pre-modern civilization of ours. So let's continue. I shall prove consensusly that the black people have the most ancient history of all humans. But the best available source of the proof is the history of, they will say, I don't use the term the J term, or they use the term Jews, but it don't really matter. Known as the Bible, they would say. He's going there, the river, Eden, of course. I'm gonna skip past that because I know y'all don't believe in that shit. I don't use that J term. That's man made, but that's a whole nother story. I ain't gonna get into that. Second Rivers, spits find the reasoning. Then they use Genesis, of course. Yeah, dudes all over the place. But I picked this one apart. It's a good information though. I read it as a historical thing. So they talk about the Chaldeans. I ain't gonna get into the details of Noah and all that stuff. Like I used to teach that in the day. Ur of the Chaldees, Genesis, of course, you can find the land of Ur or Urk. Well, here we got the land of Urk, which is factual. Break all this down. This is all code. And the history affords many connections between Babylon, Arabia, and Ethiopia. There is more than the adequate evidence that the ancient nations of Babylon and Arcadia, Sumer, and Chaldea were inhabited by Cushite tribes, Ethiopian on all sides of the Tigris and Euphrates River. Yeah, so it's actually talking about Sumer and Cush and Baghdad, like what you'll say Iraq. Some people, I used to pronounce it Iraq, but they call it Iraq. You know how people call it, which is weird. Sumer and Kish. Before the dispersal of mankind, the Tower of Babel, some people pronounce it Babel. It's actually Tower of Babel, by the way. This region was not called Babylon. It was only after the confusion of the language and the dispersal of the people that name the Babel was given to the tower. This conclusion is reached by the way of logic. What was the name of this region and the tower before the confusion of the language? And the dispersal of Webster's dictionary section says Sumer is the southern division of the ancient Babylon. Moreover, this same dictionary says on page 849, Sumerian, the pre-Semitic population of the lower Euphrates River. The pre-Semitic population means that the black Sumerians were there first. This point is in harmony with my original position that the people in the lower Mesopotamia were Eastern Ethiopians. That's what he would say. These Sumerians or Ethiopians and their kindred appear to have the settle among the tracks from Mesopotamia to India. But this area now includes the southern Iran, Afghanistan, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwest of India. But the first and second allusions to Sumer in the Bible are in Genesis 10 to 10, 11, 11 first verse, the 10th verse, under the name of Shinar. Where's the dictionary? Hence, this relationship, Shinar and Sumer. This is definitely a blood relationship between the two Dravidian tribes of India and the Ethiopian Sumerians. The Sumerian civilization preceded the Babylonian, but the Sumerians founded cities that existed more than 4,000 years BCE, such as Eridu, Lagish, like we see on the screen. They're going to talk about this, and Nupar, Kish, and or Urk on here, what we talk about. And archaeologists have found skeletons in ancient Dravidian and Nedia types in or Kish or Urk, they would say in the realistic world. Sumerian statues resemble the statuettes of the Dravidian civilization. So yeah, this right here shows you on page 17. You can find this at the Babylon Timbuktu, and it breaks that down. So it's pretty much what we're seeing here. And this confirms this information right here. Shouts to this brother right here bringing this great research. And I've been using this for like 10 years, and a salute to him again. And I have to reference this point. Yep, Sumerian inscriptions, monument, archaic style, circa 2600 BE. And that's their little numerical or their symbolism in tablets right here. Here's their inscriptions and writing. So it's pretty much what you see and what you get. Here's the flood tablet relating to part of the epic Gilgamesh. I talked about the Gilgamesh period. Here we go. From Navia, northern Iraq. We talked about Iraq in this book as well. Neo-Assyrian 7th century BCE, famous Conformium tablet from Mesopotamia. We just talked about the Assyrian king, Ashurbanipal. I mentioned him. I mentioned them in the Assyrian kings. I mentioned them in certain like black civilizations, I believe, in Persia. If you watch the Elamite kingdom on my live stream, I mentioned them as well in that series as well. So it was like a Wednesday series I was talking about last year. Y'all can go back and look at that if y'all want to. It's in the Dark History series. Y'all can look that up on your spare time. So I talked about this as well. Reigned 669 631 BCE, collected a library of thousands of conformium tablets in his palace at the Neve, and it included letters, a legal text, a list of people and animals and goods, and a wealth of scientific information as well as myths and all legends. But the best known for these was the story of the Gilgamesh and the legendary ruler of Urk, or they would say. In his search for immortality, the epic Gilgamesh is a huge wonk than the longest piece of the literature in the Akkadian language of the Babylonian and Assyria. It was known across the ancient Near East, with the versions also founded as the Hatius, Hatius known for across the ancient Near East, with the versions of also found as the Hattius capital of Hittites, they would say, or Hattian Empire, we should say now. There's no such thing as a Hittite Empire. It's the Hattian Empire. I got a lot of what's on that. That's an old pre-record that explain that. You can find that somewhere in my videos. Emar in Syria and Megiddo in the Levant, and this is the 11th tablet of the epic, describes the meeting of the Gilgamesh with the Unapsim, like Noah in the Hebrew Bible. They will say the Unapsims have been forward of a plan to the gods to send a great flood, but he built a boat and loaded it with all precious possessions, his Keith and kin, domesticated wild animals, and skilled craftsmen of every kind. Wow. The great flood. The Babylonian conform alphabet. This is the Babylonian conform alphabet letters, like they say, and they have them wrote. It's like all these, and it's pretty much you see the history. And we just talked about the Babylonian period. Let's see what's going on here, and pretty much what you see now, and it's just pretty much it. So yeah, and that's what we're seeing here. But it's just like I see this a lot, and we basically got this here, and then we got this conforming alphabet. So it's pretty much you're here and hit or miss. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. So Babylonian conforming alphabet is what it is. So we just off this period. So we're gonna confirm what's what. So in the book, and damn, yeah, I gotta get this off. We're gonna get into Afro-Asian culture goes to Europe. I read this part back in damn, what the hell's going on? Don't do that. Don't do that shit. All right. And I read this part, chapter 3, and I read this part. If you read while I was reading back then, I was reading from this book, and I had this book for a minute. I had this book around 8 years ago, and this is a good book, and I've been wanting to get this for a minute. Afro-Asian culture goes to Europe. I'm gonna read this part. The Sumerians and Babylonians and Ethiopians were black people. They contribute much to the advancement of civilization because they studied astrology. Yeah, they created the different types of astrology. They were capable of formulating many principles of astronomy. Astrology and astronomy goes together. It's like the planets and the symbolisms and things like that, signs, domestic signs and things like that, and symbolisms. These black people were so sagacious and skillful that they were able to divide the years into months, weeks, hours, minutes, and seconds. In mathematics, they developed the decimal system, which is very true. Yeah, they was into that stuff. They had different types of astrology, like symbolism of animals and months and weeks, and they created decimals. Decimals were they thing, like in math, like a decimal. I was preaching that back then. So most famous Babylonian kings was Hammurabi. The Babylonian kings was Hammurabi. I mentioned him. I mentioned him in the Dark History in one of my streams last year, and who ruled about 2150 BCE. And he was outstanding for his codification of the system of laws and founded on retaliation as the punitive measures for crime. He also established a 7-day week with the last day at rest or Sabbath or the Shabbat, they would say. This idea was adopted by the Hebrews and then transmitted to the Greeks, Romans, and other Europeans. The literature of the Babylonians is quite interesting. Long ago, these black people wrote with sharp instruments, like we mentioned above of the screen, what we just read above on the screen that y'all looking at, and then I'm reading it from this book, this other what you call it piece, not just evidence, but information, another piece of information adding to this content right here. Literature is quite interesting. Thousands of tablets were found. Yeah, clay tablets, sharp instruments with clay tablets, like we just read earlier. Okay, thousands of these tablets have been founded in some of these disclose a popular work known as the Unima Elish or the creation of epic, but the story of how the world began derived from the Babylonians. After the dispersal of mankind, we just read from chapter 1, at the Tower of Babel, Tower of Babel, they call them the Hamites, migrated towards the east, south, or southwest, and the west. These Hamites settled in it because it says black Hamites in the book. We already know they're black, but I'm gonna say Hamites in the land of Canaan. I talked about the Canaan. I think I talked about them in Canaan, Persia, and Samaria. They're all in together with the research, what I just did in streams on. But let's continue. Later it was called Israel. But the land of Canaan gets named from the youngest son of, they said the youngest son of Ham, who was Canaan. Canaanites were the primordial aborigines of the land of Canaan, which they were. They gone now. I talked about them. Did a two-part series about them. That was like that was some content I've always did. I did a two-part series with them. I think I did one on a Sunday as well. We may call them Africans because of their blood relationship to other inhabitants of the African continent. They were 11 Canaanite tribes living in the land of Canaan and surrounding it before the black. They call them, we know the Israelites or Yashroelites in their language, because I was preaching that back in 10 years ago. I call them Yashroelites. See, he said Israelites in the books, but in their language it used to be called Yashroelites. But that's a whole nother topic on that. I'll discuss that a future vlog stream talking about that. But the greatest culture of the commercial cities of these black Canaanites, they call them black Canaanites, but Canaanites were Tyre and Sidon. I talked about this before, sometimes written in Zidian. This city gets the name from Sidon, the firstborn son of Canaan. The Zidians and the Tyrians were of the same race, but their kings ruled over both of these cities. In many history books, you will read about the Sidonians and under the name of Phoenicia. Yep, we talked about the Phoenicians. I talked about the Phoenicians and that as well in the Canaanite period. The Phoenicians under the name Phoenicia, but they actually are called Sidonians in this book. According to here, this is true. The Greeks called the Sidonians Phoenicians, which they are land of palm. They call them the land of palm. They call them Phoenicians. That's what they called them. The Greeks called them Phoenicians, but the actual name is what? Sidonians, like Zidians with an S, Zidians. But their language is Zidian with a Z. See, when you read, this is a reliable source connection to the information I'm bringing right here tonight, and it's gonna be very interesting. And we're gonna talk about Hannibal in this book as well. Y'all prepare for your seats. Y'all do what's best. Yeah, I ain't gonna focus on the game. So it's pretty much it. All right. Land of palm, because they found many palm trees there. Because they found many palm trees there. But the Syrians called their nation by the name of Canaan or Canaan or Canaan. They named Canaan, that's in realistically, but Canaan in code. Phoenicia, or the land of the Syrians, was located to the north of Palestine, along to the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, bounded by the sea on the west, and by the mountains ranges of Lebanon on the east. But Tyre and Sidon were found about 2300 BCE, but the Tel the Adamanira tablets showed that Tyre was place of the greatest strength in the 15th century BCE. Sidon was still older. For a long time, it was only black. I mean, not black. We already know they black, but Phoenician city known to the Greeks. Even after Tyre took the leadership, the Greeks and Hebrews spoke of the Scythian language, Phoenicians as Scythians. See, they call them Phoenicians, but as Scythians. And the king of Ethabal of Tyre is called king of Zydians, known as Zydian people. That's what they call, which they would call them in Greek. In the Greek culture, they would call them Phoenicians. That's why. See, Phoenicians a Greek name, but their actual name is Zydians, according to this source right here. These black people were proficient in philosophy, astronomy, geometry, arithmetic, and navigation. They had good harbors of which enabled them to navigate to the distance of land, such as Cyprus, Sardinia, Crete. I talk about them a lot. I talk about them a lot in my pre-record, my old pre-recordeds in my Dark History live streams. Y'all check those out. Rhodes, Cadiz in Spain, and Sicily and Carthage, we're about to talk about in a minute, in North Africa near Tunis. Tangier, Ophir, and the Canary Isles. These Phoenicians were skilled also in metalwork, needlework, and embroidery. They extract dye from the shellfish abounding in the adjacent waters. This dye became known later as the Tyrian purple. They made glass from the white sand of the Mediterranean coast. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get over here. And, that's what you get. The Phoenicians spoke a Hamitic Semitic language, so closely allied to the Hebrews that Phoenicia and the Hebrew, though different dialects, may particularly be regarded as the same language, but it was previously stated that there were 11 Canaanite tribes: Scythians, Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivitites, Archisites, Sinanites, Avaraites, Sumerites, and Hamathites. The Hebrew has its origin in Canaanite language, but when Abraham came from the region of Babylon into the land of Canaan, he found the Canaanite language similar to his own language. Abraham communicated very well with this inhabitants of the new land, they would say, adopted the Canaanite language made by certain modifications. It became known as Hebrew language, but they're all Semitic languages. Was very similar to the Canaanite, says the Bible dictionary, in the Phoenician or Canaanite, or be classified as the African language. They would say no such thing as African language. That's man made, because we don't know if that's it's all darker languages or Semitic language. Just call it what it is. Everybody spoke Semitic languages back then, and then later, there's no such thing as Hermetic language or Hermetic or wherever. We ain't gonna get into that. That's like a complication, because the way this guy wrote it, then he just threw it together. But this guy broke down the actual language. It confirms what these two are saying, but he's got a better insight what these languages call it. This dude did research, and pretty much um, the archaeological part of it as well. You can see it, but I'm reading from a different source, and then I'll bring another source right here. This is the actual source I'm showing y'all now. Then they talk about the Talmud and all that. We ain't gonna get into that. Y'all know about all that. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get with him. It's not as cut and as dry as people think. God damn it. I don't like. See, this is what happens when you have too many things at once. I talked about the Egyptians. Hebrew Canaanite language is one of the they call it African languages. Many private houses of these black people were equipped with the Christians for storing water. The wealth of Phoenicia or Carthage was predicted on clandestine technical procedures and manufactured secret mines of an advantage of the expensive metals, concealed secret trading posts in the remote areas from Ethiopia to Pillars of Hercules. Their knowledge of navigation enabled them to reach the British Isles and the Arctic Ocean. English alphabet derived from two ancient black nations, the Phoenician Canaanite alphabet and the Hebrew, and the Phoenicians have a powerful navy, and they were a trading trading people when the Phoenicians traded with the Greeks, and the Greeks did not have an alphabet, which is true. They did not have an alphabet. As a result, they adopted the Phoenician alphabet in order to transact business. The Greeks passed this alphabet to the Romans, and the Romans transmitted to the German Anglo-Saxon tribes. This was brought to the British Isles. The first two letters of the Phoenician and Hebrew alphabet are alpha and bet, which is similar to the word alphabet. The Phoenicians also gave the system of weights and measures to the Europeans. The city of Carthage was called the Queen of the Sea. Carthaginians controlled the commerce in the Mediterranean Sea. A new nation merged in Peninsula Italy, Rome, which challenged the commercial interests and supremacy of Carthage in the Mediterranean. This is the state of hospitality led to the long wars called the Punic Wars. I talked about the Punic Wars with Hannibal. We're gonna get into that. The Punic Wars. The first Punic War was in the years of 264 to 241 BCE, mostly naval battles, which Italy won. The Second Punic War, this is in Africa, by the way, was fought in years of 218 to 201 BCE, black general by the name of Hannibal Armoricarpi. We're going to get to him in a minute. An extraordinary figure who did what was considered the impossible by crossing the Alps with elephants. In Italy, he was victorious over the Romans. He was very resourceful and crafty, but when he got into a difficult situation at one time, he drove the herds of the cattle into the Romans. His unexpected victories amazed and terrified the city of Rome. But at the end, because of the lack of men and supplies, he had to return to Africa. And this is when Rome conquests him later on. So the Third Punic Wars was in years of 149 to 146 BCE and fought at the Zamia in Africa. Because Hannibal's skill in warfare, his strategy is taught in the military colleges around the world, which is facts. So it's pretty much Hannibal was a key figure. We're going to get to it, and we're going to go right back to the source of what it is, of what Hannibal did. So we're going to get to the part. Shang China. I talked about China once in the Dark History Strange. Chinese writing characters began little pictures representing objects. Later representation of abstract thoughts appeared, and later still they were modified into the phonetic characters. As times went on, the characters themselves became more simplified and abstract, so that today there were now symbols bear little resemblance in the original objects they represent. But the markings that may be writing have been found on objects dated to 7000 BCE at the Jahu Neolithic sites. Unusual black markings on the pottery produced by the Dawans in Stone Age culture, but that they reside in what is now Gansu province of beginning at the least 5000 BCE, are regarded by some archaeologists as a primitive photographic characters. The chariot decoration, Western Zhao, 1100 BCE. The first example, what are universally recognized as Chinese characters, inscriptions on the oracle bones and bronze vessels, were produced during the Shang Dynasty, 1700 to 1100 BCE. Some 200 different characters were already in use in the Shang Dynasty. Some of the earliest writing was done on perishable bamboo and wood, nearly all which has been lost to time. The Shang Oracle Bones. Let's go to Shang Oracle Bones. Shang priests practice an unusual form of divination that involving placing heated rods in the grooves and carve in specifically prepared or ox scalpels and shoulder bones and turtle patrons. But the undersides of the turtle shells, the ensures the crack where the reading by the foretellers are the auspicious and inceptious signs and message from the natural spirits. Ancient ancestors and the predictions were made by the king, and rather than the divine, and the answers were engraved on the bones. Over 100,000 100,000 oracle bones have been found mostly in the storage pits of the Zaxuntun Henan, and oracle bones appear to have held a high place in the Shang culture. This would lead one of the concluded in superstition and writing languages held very high places in the lives of the ancient Chinese. Shang turtle shell oracle bone, as you can see right here. Users of the oracle bone uh, divinations of sought the advice of the predictions of on the matters such as the raising of the crops, outcomes in battles and illness and childbirth. But they also advise from the dead and the messing of the dreams and suggests how many people to sacrifice one inscription's purpose, sacrificing prisoners to their ancestors, possibly after the divination in another inscription that recommended 5 prisoners in the oracle bones unearthed at the Zaxium also provided some of the earliest evidence of Chinese writing and the first example of writing in East Asia. They recorded harvests and childbirths and wars detailed in accomplishments of kings, describes human sacrifices and plagues, natural disasters, enemy tribes, and the alignments of kings. Some 3,000 different Chinese characters, most of them pictograms, were used during the Shang dynasty. Messages recorded on the oracle bones included Lady Howe's childbearing will be good. After 31 days, Lady Howe gave birth. It was not good, it was a girl. In the next 10 days, there will be no disasters. If it was raised 3,000 men, called on them to attack the Gofang. We will receive abundant assistance. Some of the messages could even be poetic. One goes in the afternoon in rainbow. Also come out of the north and drank in the Yellow River. So we talked about the Yellow Rivers. So, pretty much as you can see. Of course, we got the Egyptians and Egyptian writings, of course, the example, the Gershon pottery, 4000 BCE, the hieroglyphs, of course. We got the Dakota pottery, 3500 BCE. Y'all know about that, or Comedians or whatever. Egyptian scribe, they would say, Comedian scribe, you want to call it. Hieroglyphs consist of 3 kinds of glyphs: phonetic glyphs, including single consonant characters, but the function like an alphabet; logoglyphs, representing morphemes and uh, ternatives, and which narrow down the meaning of the longographs or phonetic words. So it's pretty much the same. And you see this right here, the Ivory Plague, King Den's sandal label from Abydos, Egypt, early dynastic period. I talked about this. Also in Egypt, I talked about the ancient civilization. Mid First Dynasty, 2985 BCE. Most ivory plagues dating the First Dynasty were made as labels. This is a pair of sandals insist of black insist on the back of this one indicates that it was a label for sandals, which were extremely prestigious items. Labels such as they were usually decorated with the representation of important events. And this is an example, shows Den, the fifth king of the First Dynasty, about to bring his mace. They used mace back then, the weapon mace, like a melee weapon. The mace were very violent weapon to use. Besides swords, it was mace, like a stick. It was his mace down on his head of his vanquished enemy. But the name of the king is written in the rectangular frame in front of his face, which is the figure of a falcon and a symbol of royalty. Above the hieroglyphs behind the king, give him the name one of his high officials, Inca. This label is one of the few sources for information about the activity inside or outside Egypt or early dynastic period. This hieroglyph is on the right hand side of the label. First uh, occasion, first occasion of the smiting Yeah, the smiting east, and that the enemy is an Easterner is indicating by his long locks, pointed beard, and this gravel spotted desert, which is serve as a grounded line rises to the hit to the spot and is suggestive of Egyptian depictions of foreign lands. Yeah. So it's pretty much, you see the mace right here, his staff and the weapon. They was fighting back then. See, back then they had spears. Maces was a violent melee weapon. Yeah, they had swords and daggers and like that stuff. That's what they had back then. They didn't have bow and arrows. Bow and arrows was new. That's that archery. That's that long range weapons. That came later. That came later. I mean, arrows came later. That's a new form. This is way before guns. And if we see the weapons today, oh, they choose the guns. Greatest equalizer. That's the future. What you see now. So it's pretty much what you see at this point. So it's not like something we just talked about. We just talk about this a lot. So it's pretty much you just saying what we have right here. You know what I mean? Because I see this a lot. So we're going to talk about it. And then here's the hieroglyphs of the Egyptians. I talked about this earlier. You can check the Egyptian stuff out. And then we're going to drop this down. The section of the papyrus of the Annie showing cursive hieroglyphs. Of course, you see all this. You see all this stuff right here and just, mounted. As the writing developed, it became more widespread among the Egyptians. People simplified the glyph forms developed, resulting in the hieroglyphic uh, precisely in the and demonic popular scripts. These variants were also more suited than the hieroglyphs were used on papyrus. That's what papyrus looked like, stone papyrus and all that paper. Hieroglyph writing was not, however, eclipsed, but existed alongside the other forms of this, especially in monumental other formal writing. The Rosetta Stone contains three parallel scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek. And Edwin Smith's paper is written in hieroglyphic right here. He was writing that. Authorships, of course, stated, debated. You know, they're showing the scribes, 18th dynasty, and things like that. They was debating on it. We're gonna get into the Indus Valley in a minute. Let's see what's going on here. So it's pretty much what you see here and what you get. So that's just it. And I'm just gonna get into it right quick. So it's like it's not that pretty much. So you see what's going on here. You see what's going on here, and then you talk about these things and whatever, whatnot. So I'm just like, we talk about the actual histories and things like that nature. So it's pretty much what I see in here or whatever. So yeah, I'll be back for 1 second. Give me 1 second. All right, back at it again. Back at it again. Back at it again. Let me see, quick. Make sure my gain is up. Okay. Hieroglyphs continue to be used under the Persian rule intermittently in the 6th and 5th centuries BCE. After Alexander the Great's conquest of Egypt, during the ensuing Macedonian and Roman periods, which is facts. It appears that the misleading quality of the comments from Greek and Roman writers about hieroglyphs came about, at least in a part, as a response to changed political situations. Some believe that hieroglyphs may have functioned as a way to distinguish true Egyptians from some of the foreign conquerors. Another reason may be the refusal to tackle a foreign culture on its own terms, which characterized Greco Roman approaches to Egyptian culture generally. Having learned that the hieroglyphs were sacred writing, Greco Roman authors imagined the complex but the rational system as an allegorical, even magical system, transmitting secret mystical knowledge. By the 4th century, few Egyptians were capable of reading hieroglyphs, and the myth of the allegorical hieroglyphs was ascended. The monumental use of hieroglyphs ceased after the closing of all non-Christian temples in 391 CE by the Roman Emperor Theodosius I. The last known inscription is from the Philae known as the Graphiot of Esmet Echion from 396 CE. Yeah, I talked about him in the Romans and things like that in the Dark History streams, but that's a whole nother, it's in the playlist. Y'all can check it out. I mentioned him last year as well. And I mentioned Indos Valley as well. I talked about Indos Valleys part 1 and 2. Like, I gotta check my playlist for a minute. I'm gonna see what I'm talking about. Yeah, because it's a lot of shit I talked about last year. So it's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a lot going on YouTube. So it's pretty much, what you have. I think that's okay. That's it. Ah, trying to see for a minute. Yeah, view it. Okay, okay. In those valley. Yeah, in those valley. I did a 2 hour stream. Dark culture. I did that. Yeah, that's 2 hours. Y'all can check that out. In those valley. So it's pretty much what you see right now. So it's pretty much what you got. Yeah, I was talking about that. Let's see how much time I got. a pause for a minute. Sorry about that, y'all. Yeah, YouTube's acting up. Okay, let's talk about it. I talked about this earlier. So pretty much it. Okay, the first Indian script developed in the Indus Valley around 2600 BCE is still not fully deciphered. Thus, it's still not possible to fully understand this civilization like it is today. They still can't, they deciphering it now. I'm the only one talking about it on this channel. Bronze figure for dancing girl, Manjodaro, 2500 BCE. That's what they mean by 2600 or 2600 BCE. As we have known, as we have no readable records of their later Indian scripts like Brahmini and Krashtasthi, which was developed to write both official and local languages. Great epics and royal inscriptions, religious texts, and administrative documents were all written using these scripts. Through these sources, we are able to learn about the literature, mythology, history, and beliefs in ancient India. This is ancient India, by the way. They call it Indus Valley, the originals. And you already know what happened to them. I already did a whole stream on that. Indos seals or amulets addressed to the gods were worn on the body. In the seal below, we have the depiction of the deity, in this case, Mal as the unicorn. And the votive description was written above the deity in Harappan script. The manager under the head of Maal is made up of several Indo signs. It is read Pu, Pa, or a flourishing condition, though distribute. That's that unicorn creature, what they was talking about. So it's pretty much it. The Minoans, I talked about them in the Japhite series, I believe. The Minoans, the Cretans, and all that. That's in Greece, whatever. The Cretan hieroglyphs are hieroglyphs found in artifacts in the Bronze Age. The Minoan Crete, second millennium BCE, MM1 to MM3. Um, millennium 1 to millennium 3, overlapping with the lunar, and from millennia 2A. The Phaseos disc is a disc of fire clay from the Minoan place of the Phaseos on the Greek island Crete, possibly dating to the middle of the late Minoan Bronze Age, second millennium BCE. It is purpose and meaning, even in its original geographical place of manufactures, remain disputed, making it one of the most famous mysteries of archaeology. The Phaseos disc, or how you want to pronounce a Phaseos disc, right here, and that's what he was holding. So it's pretty much, the lunar A is one of the two scripts used in ancient Crete before uh, Macedonian Greek linear B. A second bringing a Cretan hieroglyphs in Minoan times before the Macedonian Greek Dominion linear A was official script for the palaces of the cults, and hieroglyphs were similarly used on seals. In 1952, Michael Ventris discovered this linear B was being used to write the early form of Greek, now known as uh, Macedonian a Macedonian, and he and others used the information to achieve the significance and now well accepted decipherment of the lunar B. Although many points remains to be e- elucidated, and a failure to discover the language of the lunar A has prevented the same sort of progress have been made in its development. Though that the two scripts, the lunar A and B, share on some of the same symbols using the syllabus associated with the lunar B. In lunar A writings produce procedures, words that are unrelated to uh, to any known language, but this language has been Q, the Minoan, and corresponds to a period in Cretan history and prior to a series of invasions by Macedonian Greeks. 14 BCE. Damn. 14 BCE seems to have been using a incomplete syllabary around 1800 BCE, although several signs would appear as Mason Marcus earlier. It is possible that the Trojan linear and scripts discovered by Heinrich and Shellman in one of the inscriptions from the central Crete, as well as few similar potteries from Egypt until 12th dynasties, come from an early period, 2100 1900 BCE, which is the period of construction of the first palace. Linear A tablet. Okay, so we see it right here, the linear A tablet they talking about, and then the linear A tablet down here, and it got this little writing, other symbols and unclassified symbols and things like that. So that was really talking in lunar B symbols. We already know the lunar B is a syllabic script used for the Minoan Greeks and Minoans and all that. Sidon and Phadios and Mene and this succeeding period known as the Greek Dark Ages. No evidence of the use of writing. Yeah, it's just the writing. Syllable B. This is lunar B. That's the longograms. So it's pretty much, Etruscans. I talked about them too. Etruscans. I talked about them as well. I talked about them as well a lot in pre-records, live streams. Y'all can check that out. Talk about the Etruscans a lot. Etruscans. I used to pronounce them Etruscans, but it's pronounced Etruscans. Okay, Etruscans or Etrusia or Etruscans. Etruscans, the great ancient language of culture in Italy, does not survive in any great literary works. An Etruscan religious literature did exist. Evidence suggests that there was a body of historical literature and drama as well. Known, for example, is the name of the playwright Volneyus, or obscure dated, who wrote the Tuscan tragedies. Although there is no evidence of the notion, it is possible that the Etruscans' music was written for. In the process of creating their false history, whites, as usual, destroy writings of the ancients, and the last being the Etruscan discipline, the Etruscan books of the cult and divination, collected and burned in the 5th century CE. The Etruscan language is universally accepted as the isolated case, and it cannot be shown consecutively to be related to any other language in living or dead, except for a couple of sparsely attested extinct languages. Radic, recorded in the Alps, was clearly related to the Etruscan, judging by the few inscriptions found in Layman and recorded on the island of Lemnos. Also appears to have been related to the Etruscan, a third language, a, a communic and sparsely recorded in northwestern Italy, written in the Etruscan alphabet, may possibly also have been related, but the evidence is too sparse to allow any safe conclusions. Yeah. So you got the Etruscans. I talk about them a lot. Etruscan script, Cortonian tablet, which details a land contract between two families. As you can see, there you go, right here. This tablet right here, I'm just looking at, and you see this woman right here. I believe this is a woman, Etruscan woman. That's what they look like. Etruscans have ceased to be spoken in time in the imperial Rome, though it's continued to be studied by priests, scholars. The emperor of Claudius wrote a history of the Etruscans in 20 books, now lost, which was based on source still preserved in his day. But the language continued to be used in a religious context until late antiquity. But the final records, such as used, relates to invasions of Rome by Alaric and chief of the Visigoths in 410 CE when Etruscan priests were summoned to conjure lightning against the barbarians. The Phrygian Lamellais in the Etruscan and Phoenician, which records the dedications to the Phoenician goddess Astari, and then the sacred place in the Etruscan sanctuary are the Priory by therefore the villain next and king of Cari early in the 5th century BCE. Okay. There's a corpus over 10,000 known Etruscan inscriptions of the new ones being discovered each year. There are mainly short funerary or decorative of inscriptions found in the funerary of urns and tombs or objects dedicated to the sanctuaries. Others are found on engraved bronze Etruscan mirrors, where they label mythological figures or give the name of the owner, and on coins, dice, and pottery. Finally, there are graffiti scratch on pottery, though their functions is a little understood, but they seem to include owners' names as well as numbers, abbreviation, non-alphabetic signs. So that's as you can see right here. It's pretty much it's in here right now. Oh damn, Boston's leading. I am not surprised. Oh God, what about Mastercard? They talking about Mastercard here. We just talked about the Venetians, known as the Scythians. I talked about them a lot in Canaan. And they let's see what's going on here. Almost done. We're gonna get to Hannibal. We ain't gonna stay on Hannibal too long, so let's see how long this stream is. It's an hour, and yeah, it's almost 2 hours, but we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the Phoenicians and all that. Okay, the Phoenician script, 1100 BCE to 300 CE. Is an important trunk in the alphabet tree in the many modern scripts and can be traced through the Arabic and Aramaic. We just talked about Hebrew, Latin, and Greek scripts. We just talked about it in the Babylon Timbuktu, known as the Zydians, which the Phoenicians is a Greek name for the Zydians, by the way. Phoenicians is direct descendants of the Proto-Semitic script, like Proto-Semitic, and Phoenician is the consonantal alphabet is known as Abjad and only contains letters representing the consonants, and vowels are generally omitted in this phase of the writing system. But the major change between the Proto-Semitic and Phoenician is graphical. The Phoenician later shapes and grew to be more abstract, linear in comparison to more figurative shape in Pro-Natic Semitic language. That's what they used back then. And of course, they used the white Greeks, first albino and all that. Yeah. Romans. We ain't gonna get into that. Y'all know about that piece. But I'll give y'all the link to eat off of. The Olmecs. A stone block discovered the Olmec heartland of Veracruz, Mexico, contains the oldest writing. The New World says international team of archaeologists, including Stephen D. Houston of Brown University. The team determined the block dates in the early first millennium BCE, at least 400 years earlier, and the scholars previously thought the writing exists in the Western Hemisphere. Olmec colossal head, sum ups to the 12 feet tall and weigh several tons, but there are those to monuments to deceased kings. We still see what their bodies look like. I've yet to see that until my man does the research. I've yet to see what the bodies look like with the Olmecs. I'm very curious. They say we know what their bodies look. No, we don't. I've yet to see it. This don't count. Shouts out to the brother right here. Yeah, the Kojic block. Yeah, we this is nice, but we want to see what they look like, the actual frame of the body, not just the face. The face is one thing. What about the bodies? Opiate Olmec script. One of the most important Olmec finds was discovery in an inscripted slab found under the waters of the Acula River near the village of Marjora in 1986 in Mexican state of Veracruz. Dubbed Steele's one of the La Marjora, this monument was inscribed was 465 glyphs arranged in 21 columns. The image of the ruler, the writing on it's nothing like any other writing system in Mesoamerica, such as Maya, Zapotec, Mixter, or Aztec, although, like the Maya, it is also used to long count. However, the Stela one of La Mijara is one only example of the writing and writing example in the writing system, and most of the monuments later bear glyphs of the similar and also found near in the Isthmus Tehuantepec and the thin stretch that later and separates the majority of Mexico from the southeastern and from Central America. Although none of it has text of the longest, the stela and the famous textual statuette and hand lamp and nephrite figurines and almost comedic man dressed in a duck's outfit bears a long count. All right. And it's yeah, it's pretty much all the stela and the famous yeah, textile statuette in the hand left nephrine figurines and comedic, yeah. And bearing longs dated 162 CE as well as non-calantric glyphs. Other famous inscriptions include Stela C and Tres Zaptes and with the long count dated 32 BCE and Stela 1 of the Chape de Corzo located in Chapiz in Mexico. Cha- is it Chapaz? Yeah, Chapaz, Mexico, with the incomplete data conjectured to be 36 BCE in the site of Cerro de la Mesa, Veracruz. Highly eroded monuments, also long dates from the classical period around 450 CE, as well as large stone versions of the Taxilia statuette devoted of any text. Yeah, the scholars they talking about the Olmecs and things like that. I talked about Mexico and things like that, the history of it. It's pretty much the same that I talked about Nerular writings, the Aztec writings, Olmec writings, and you know, it's pretty much what you see. I talk about the Olmecs. This is the Olmec writing, and it dates back to 50. I'm not gonna get into it. The Mayan, of course, I talked about that in the Dark History stream. A lot of people gave me some flack off this live stream last year. The Mayan culture, they have their own little writing system of lips. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get, and you see the picture of the Mayan classic late 600 to 800 CE in the Guatemala and things like that they talked about. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get, right? So the Mayan alphabet, the pictograph, they show you all this stuff right here. It's pretty much what you see again. So I'm not really tripping off of anything. So I'm just looking at it for what it is. So it's pretty much I've seen what y'all talking about. I've talked about this last year, and then I got some hell for that stream too. A lot of people was just coming at me sideways in the chat room, and I'll never forget that shit was wild too. Had to knock some trolls off. They was on some bullshit. I think Fire sent those trolls. All right, the history of writing, we're through with that. We're going to talk about that. That's just gives you it's just my summary of it. We're not going to spend much time on Hannibal. I got another source. I'm just going to copy this and put this in the chat room in case y'all want the meat of it. And here's what we're going to do. I'm post this right here and just put it in the chat room. And in case y'all want to read that for yourselves, I'm going to drop this down and take it off right quick. So it's pretty much hit or miss and whatever. So we're going to go back to it again. We're going to get to Hannibal right quick. Let's just say we got him right here. I'm going to pick up the screen. There you go. Finally, Hannibal. Y'all know the story. I already did parts of Hannibal. I'm going to be brief and talk about him. It's not going to be long. How much time do I fucking got? Because I know it's almost 2 hours. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go for the 2 hour gusto. Okay. Because I got robbed last night. Okay. Tonight's going to be a good night. Okay. We're going to get into it because I know it's 9 right now. Because we got some bullshit right away. So I don't know what I'm switching right now. Afro Asian culture. So we're going to get away from that. Let's talk about Hannibal. And we're going to talk about it because I mentioned him in the Babylon Timbuktu. I will get cut over here. Arabs and all that. So it's pretty much what I'm seeing right now. Get some slightly better headphones. I won't have to deal with the ones I got now. But I gotta work what I got. Gotta work what I got. So it's pretty much what you see, what you get. So, we're gonna get to the Hannibal. I forgot what chapter I was on, so sorry for the pause. But you know what I'm saying. But it's pretty much what you see, what you get with him. Okay, we in the Berbers. Okay, at this part. Okay, the city of Hannibal language. We're gonna get to this part, and we're gonna confirm what we read. So just give me 2 minutes, and I'll be right back, y'all. I'm gonna step away for a minute. I'll be right back. All right, back with the let's go with Hannibal. Okay, the city of language of Hannibal. At the ruins of Carthage, archaeologists have found about 4,000 inscriptions in the ancient language of Canaan. Uh, Nahum Scott says the inscriptions date from yeah, date from the time of the Nehemiah or Simeon or just of Hannibal and of Hasdrubal. We're going to talk about Hasdrubal for a minute. Says Sloches, and most valuable of all we have found. Again, the ancient language and the writing of Canaan, and the idiomatic speech of a city which once counted 700,000 inhabitants. And we Hebrew writers, we who wrote and feel in our biblical tongue, have recognized at once that this recalled Phoenician language is nothing more or nor less than a pure Hebrew dialect, nearly the same as was spoken into the country of Israel. They would say, yeah, known as country of Israel. They call it back then, but actually it was called the country of Yasharal. But that's a whole nother, told you about that. That's a separate stream on that. The population of Carthage was derived from Palestine, and its civilization was Hebraic in origin. Schultz is certain that after much research that this language as Hannibal spoke and in which he directed his troops was Hebrew, which is facts. There is evidence that the Carthaginians possessed the highest priesthood. Yeah, the high priesthood in their ceremonies and sacrifices were similar to the rituals found in the book of Leviticus, and according to some inscriptions, the Hebrew tribes of Asher and Zebulun were were in Carthage from the foundation of the city, which is sort of true, yeah. And then they migrated up. That's a whole nother topic on that. At the ruins of Carthage were e- exa- evacuated evacuated many inscriptions containing many Hebrew names such as Yob, Yos, and Yol, or known as Joab, Joas, and Joel. But back then, their names would have been considered. There was no J's back then or I's. If you read Hebrew, it's only Y. So their names would be Yob, Yoas, and Yol in their language, or Y. They would say it like that. But see, it'd be Joel or Joaz or Joab. See, that's in J in the English, but if you take the J, it's actually a Y. That's how their names were pronounced in Hebrew. So I know it's kind of weird, but yeah. But City of Tunis said that neither Arab or nor European Tunis is I ain't gonna say ooh city, but a lot of people say Jewish city. I don't use that term. Um, it's a Hebrew city, they will say. Nowhere else does a Hebrew feel at home as he does in Tunis. But Schultz says so beautifully. Indeed, Tunis is the inheritor of Hebrew Carthage in the internal city of, like it is in for like Phoenix and of course in, Roman description. Okay. We don't get into that. And they talk about the Moorish Empire and all this other stuff. Okay. So we're gonna find Hannibal again. He talked about has durable. So I talked about that. More civilization and okay, expansion in Spain. Gets into that. I'm gonna find that source where found Hannibal, Western African slave trade. That's pretty much it for this source. So we're gonna read this right here, and we're gonna talk about the rise of Hannibal and his brother or whoever has durable was. And I mentioned this in a pre-record. The army of Theropon unanimously, we just read from the book, choose Hannibal to be their general in spite of his youth, because of the shrewdness and courage which he had shown in their service. The triumph coin of Hannibal, 203 BCE. That's the picture right here, as you see. I know some trolls use this thing, call himself Hannibal, which you got a bunch of frauds out here in certain black spaces want to call this name. They don't represent what this man represents. But let's continue. If they want to know the truth, they're frauds for using this name. This is the real Hannibal, not these fraud wannabes want to be Hannibal. All these niggas want to be Hannibal, but they ain't built like him. They ain't got his character and the charisma. But let's continue. Let's continue with the topic because I ain't gonna give these niggas no fresh air. They're fucking losers anyway. Because shit like this disgusts me when they want to use a notorious nice name, but don't live like it. I'm just like, bro, get real, get real. Let's get real for a minute, because Hannibal was a great general. He showed his military prowess, and I'm impressed with people talk about him. I talked about him years ago, respected what he represented. Certain individuals, it's just what it is. Okay. Authentic images of Hannibal, there's no proof that Carthaginian coins show his likeness. However, these coins do exist. Logically, who else but the great Hannibal would they but on a coin? Certainly not an ordinary elephant rider. No, he used them as a weapon in military tactics. Hannibal was the 26-year-old, this strange man whose name means joy of by all, had accomplished his father on his campaign in Spain at the tender of age of 9. Hamilcar Baraka had agreed to take on his campaign on one condition to that before the sacrifice, which he was then making to the gods. Hannibal should swear the eternal immunity to Rome. No man has ever kept a promise more faithfully. Hannibal's first military success was Saguntium, which is a precip- uh, preci- uh, precipitated to the Second Punic War. And it was quite clear that Hannibal carried out a carefully prepared plan, a stealth plan, by the way, which he had inherited from his father. His father taught him the stealth game. Let's go. His object was nothing less than the destruction of the power of Rome before Rome destroyed Carthage. Rome's most vulnerable spot was in Italy, which is facts at the time. And then Scipio Africanus destroyed them at the end on the tail end of the third Punic War, and his brother has durable and his wife. But we ain't gonna get into that. I talked about that on two pre-records on part 1 and part 2. Itself, where the Romans Federation of States was still loose was still loose, and the Celtic tribes, they will say, or Celtic tribes of Gauls in the north were in revolt. But since Carthage had lost command of the sea of to Rome, how was Hannibal to get to Italy with his troops? The Romans never imagined one moment that he could or would make the journey of 1,500 miles overland from Spain across to the Pyrenees of the south of France in the Alps. But that was exactly what Hannibal had decided to do. Having decided on his strategy, selected his theater of operations, Hannibal followed two principles, which was grown no less important since his day. The seizure of the initiative in the main in the ma- in the maintains in the maintenance of the element of surprise. 218 BCE may seem a long time ago, but in the manner in which Hannibal set about his task is identical with that which a competent commander would follow today, which is true. They still follow that today. A certain police force, you name it, they all follow that, even people. Hannibal's first secure his bases at Carthage and Carthaginian, and next he collected a detailed information about the countries and peoples through which he proposed to pass. For this purpose, he sent for messengers, liaison officers the Gaulish tribes, asked for detailed accounts of the terrain and the fertility of the country at the foot of the Alps, in the midst of the Alps, and then in the plain the river Po. Today, this aspect of Hannibal planning would come under the heading of logistics. He also wanted to know the number of inhabitants of the various populations, their capacity for war, and particularly whether their immunity against the Romans were maintained. Yeah, so this part, y'all know the story about Hannibal. I talked about him in the crossing the Alps, of course. Hannibal, great general commander, using stealth tactics, the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal's political strategy. I talked about him in a lot of live streams. I ain't want to get to all of them tonight. You see the violent elephants, of course. You see, it's pretty much what he used. They were violent in Africa, and he used them as weapons. And he did his thing, the stealth plan. But I ain't gonna get into Hannibal and read the rest. Y'all can read the rest for yourself. I read enough. But yeah, Hannibal talks about has durable and things like that. We're gonna get into it and pretty much it. What's going on, She? Salute, salute, salute. And pretty much it's just like a little piece. I'm gonna add a little piece to it because I know people ain't gonna just go right away and just, you know. And I'm gonna drop it right quick. And that's it for the night. So I'm just looking at it for what it is. So pretty much it's about 2 hours in. So, I pretty much talked about what's going on. It's, that of time and again and again. So it's pretty much it. And I'm just saying like for what it is and what not. So yeah, they still talking about that bullshit. That's not even real topics. But yeah, I was talking about this Hannibal, the 2 hour mark is coming in. So yeah, I think I started early. Damn, I normally don't do that. Oh well, but it's supposed to start like 8:15. But I had extra time, was prepared, but I didn't want to extend this longer because I had to watch the game, whatever. So it's pretty much you see what you get. So you know, so it's pretty much the workhorse. Yeah, and that's just how when I was talking about Hannibal long term, and I'm glad I talked about him in this portion. So he's pretty much what I said he was previous times, and then I've done streams. I've done pre-records on him twice, like from 3 years ago, and he's one of those warlord guys and commanders. And I just want to talk about the history of writing and things like this. Some little content every now and then. I'll throw these up just to revisit a topic I did last year, and I think I want to do this detailed. And it was a certain individual kind of mess up the flow of the conversation on the part two because it was a panel discussion, and he just pretty much messed it up for everybody. So it's pretty much like, okay, we see what you are, we see what you're doing, and He was looking for cover at the time, so we was talking about Hannibal and things like that. So it was a good stream in the tail end, the beginning. So I wanted to do it on one stream, but at the time people was busy doing things. But now I'm doing it with this without a panel. I'm just revisiting what I've known and the sources, and it's still the same. And until I find something new, they'll add something about Hannibal. It's pretty much what you can get. You know what I mean? So it's not like we here, but it's there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so with that, I want to say peace and shalom. Y'all have a blessed night.